Overviews of the Future. I'm Endragh, and this is more Color of Magic by Terry Pratchett. Last time, we learned all about the sea troll, Tetris, and now a flyer is coming to pick them up, supposedly. Let's just start right away. I'm excited. We're almost done with the book. I'm so sad. Alright. It came speeding across the sea, floating a man's length above it, but still leaving a foaming wake as whatever power that held it up smacked brutally into the water. Rincewind knew what power held it up. He would be the first to admit, a coward, and incompetent, and not even very good at being a failure. But he was still a wizard of sorts. He knew one of the 8 great spells. He would be claimed by death himself when he died, and he recognized really finely honed magic when he saw it. The lens skimming towards the island was perhaps 20 feet across and totally transparent. Sitting around its circumference were a large number of black-hooded men, each one strapped securely to the disc by a lengthy leather harness, and each one staring down at the waves with an expression so tormented, so antagonizing, that the transparent disc seemed to be rigged with gargoyles. Rincewind sighed with relief. This was such an unusual sound that it made Twoflower make Rincewind sighed with relief. This was such an unusual sound that it made Twoflower take his eyes off the approaching disc and turn on him. We're important, no lie, explained Rincewind. They wouldn't be wasting all this magic on our couple of potential slaves, he grinned. What is it? Said Twoflower. Well, the disc itself would have been created by Fensail's wonderful contractors, said Rincewind authoritatively. That calls for more rare and unstable ingredients, such as demon's breath and so forth, and it takes at least 8 4th-grade wizards a week to envision. Then there's those wizards on it, who must all be gifted hydrophobes. You mean they hate water? Said Twoflower. No, that wouldn't work, said Rincewind. Hate is an attractive force, just like love. They really loathe it. The very idea of it revolts them. A really good hydrophobe has to be trained on dehydrated water from birth. I mean, that costs a fortune in magic alone, but they make great weather magicians. Rain clouds just give up and go away. It sounds terrible, said the water troll behind them. And they all die young, said Rincewind, ignoring him. They just can't live with themselves. Sometimes I think a man could wander across the disc all his life and not see everything there is to see, said Twoflower. And now it seems there are lots of other worlds as well. Well, I think I might die without seeing 100th of all there is to see. It makes me feel, he paused, then added, well, humble, I suppose, and very angry, of course. The flyer halted a few yards hubward of the island, throwing up a sheet of spray. It hung there, spinning slowly. A hooded figure standing by the double pillars at the exact center of the lens beckoned to them. You'd better wait out, said the troll. It doesn't do to keep them waiting. It has been nice to make your acquaintance. He shook them both, wetly, by the hand. As he waited out a little bit with them, the two nearest loathers on the lens shielded away with expressions of extreme disgust. The hooded figure reached down with one hand and released the rope ladder. In its other hand it held a silver rod, which had about it the unmistakable air of something designed to kill people. Rincewind's first impression was reinforced when the figure raised the stick and waved it carelessly towards the shore. A section of rocks vanished, leaving a small gray haze of nothingness. That's so you don't think I'm afraid to use it, said the figure. Don't think you're afraid, said Rincewind. The hooded figure snorted. We all know about you, Rincewind the magician. You are a man of great cunning and artifice. You laugh in the face of death. Your affected air of cavern cowardice does not fool me. It fooled Rincewind. He began, impaled as the nothingness stick was turned towards him. I see you know all about me, he finished weakly, and sat down heavily on the slippery surface. He and Twoflower, under instructions from the hooded commander, strapped themselves down to ring sets in the transparent disc. If you make the merest suggestion of weaving a spell, said the dark on the hood, you die. Third quadrant reconcile. Ninth quadrant redouble. Forward all. A wall of water shot into the air behind Rincewind, and the disc jerked suddenly. The dreadful presence of the sea troll had probably concentrated the hydrophobes' minds wonderfully, because it then rose at a very steep angle and didn't begin leveling flight until it was a dozen fathoms above the water. Rincewind glanced down through the transparent surface and wished he hadn't. Well, off again then, said Twoflower cheerfully. He turned and waved at the troll, no more than a speck on the edge of the world. Rincewind glared at him. Doesn't anything ever worry you? He asked. Well, we're still alive, aren't we? asked Twoflower. And you yourself said they wouldn't be going to all this trouble if we were just going to be slaves. I expect Tethys was exaggerating. I expect it's all a misunderstanding. I expect we'll be sent home. After we've seen Kroll, of course, and I might say it all sounds fascinating. Oh, yes, said Rincewind in a hollow voice. Fascinating. He was thinking. I've seen excitement, and I've seen boredom, and boredom was best. Had either of them happened to look down at that moment, they would have noticed a strange V-shaped wave surging through the waters far below them, its apex pointing directly at Tethys' island. But they weren't looking. The 24 hydrophobes magicians were looking, but to them it was just another piece of dreadfulness, not really any different from the liquid horror around it. They were probably right. Sometime before all this, the blazing pirate ship had hissed under the waves and started the long, slow slide towards the distant ooze. It was more distant than average, because directly under the sunken keel was the Granola Trench, a chasm in the disc surface that was so black, so deep, and so reproachably evil that even the krakens went there. So reproachably evil that even the krakens went there fearfully and in pairs. In less reputed evil chasms, the fish went about there with natural lights on their heads, and on the whole managed quite well. In Granola, they left them unlit, and, insofar as is possible for something without legs to creep, they crept. They tended to bump into things too. Horrible things. The water around the ship turned from green to purple, from purple to black, from black to darkness from black to a darkness so complete that blackness itself seemed merely gray by comparison. Most of its tinders had already been crushed into splinters under the intense pressure. It spiraled past groves of nightmare polypups, and drifted forests of seaweed which glowed with faint disease colors. Things brushed it briefly with soft, cold tentacles as they darted away into the freezing silence. Something rose up from the muck and ate it in one mouthful. Some time later, the islanders on a little rimward atoll were amazed to find, washed into their little local lagoon, the wave-rock corpse of a hideous sea monster, all beak, eyes, and tentacles. They were further astonished at its size, since it was rather larger than their village, but then their surprise was tiny compared to the huge stricken expression on the face of the dead monster, which appeared to have been trampled to death. Somewhere farther rimwards of atoll, a couple of little boats, trolling a net for the Somewhat farther rimward of the atoll, a couple of little boats, trolling a net for the feverish, free-swimming oysters which abound in those seas, caught something that dragged both vessels for several miles before one captain had the presence of mind to sever the lines. Sorry, not limbs. But even his bewilderment was as nothing compared to that of the islanders on the last atoll in the archipelago. During the following night they were awakened by a terrific crashing and splintering noise coming from their minute jungle. Then, when some of the boulder spirits went to investigate in the morning, they found that the trees had been smashed in a broad swath that started on the hubmost shore of the atoll and made a line of total destruction pointing precisely edgeworth, literally with broken linels, crushed brushes, and a few bewildered and angry oysters. They were high enough now to see the wide curve of the rim sweeping away from them, lapped by the fluffy clouds that mercifully hid the waterfall for most of the time. From up here the sea, a deep... My neck is so itchy right now. From up here the sea, a deep blue draper with cloud shadows, looked almost inviting. Rincewind shuddered. "Excuse me," he said. The hooded figure turned from its contemplation of the distant haze and raised its wand threateningly. "I don't want to use this," it said. "You don't?" said Rincewind. "What is it, anyways?" said Twoflower. "A John's wand of utter negativity," said Rincewind, "and I wish you'd stop waving it about. It might go off," he added, nodding at the wand's glittering point. "I mean, it's all very flattering, all this magic being used just for one benefit, but there's no need to go quite that far, and—" "Shut up!" The figure reached up and pulled back its hood, revealing itself to be a most unusually tinted young woman. Her skin was black, not the dark brown of Urwabella, or the polished black blue of the monsoon-haunted Clatch, but the deep black of midnight at the bottom of a cave. Her hair and brown were the color of moonlight. Her hair and eyebrows were the color of moonlight. There was the same pale sheen around her lips. She looked almost 15, and very frightening. Rincewind couldn't help notice that the hand holding the wand was shaking. This was because a piece of sudden death, wobbling uncertainly a mere 5 feet from your nose, is very hard to miss. It dawned on him very slowly, because it was a completely new sensation, that someone in the world was frightened of him. The complete reversal was so often the case that he had come to think of it as a kind of natural law. "What is your name?" he said, as reassuring as he could manage. She might be frightened, but she did have the wand. If I had a wand like that, he thought, I wouldn't be frightened of anything. So what in creation can she imagine I could do? "My name is Immaternal," she said. "That's a pretty name," said Rincewind. "Where are you taking us, and why? I don't see any harm in you telling us." "You are being brought to Krull," said the girl. "And don't mock me, Hublander, else I'll use the wand. I must bring you in alive, but no one said anything about bringing you in whole. My name is Marchettas, and I am a wizard of the 5th level. Do you understand? Well, since you know all about me, then you know that I never even made it to Nepotite," said Rincewind. "I'm not even a wizard, really." He caught Twoflower's astonished expression, and added hesitantly, "Just a wizard of sorts." Twoflower still doesn't know Rincewind ain't a wizard. "You can't do magic because of the 8 great spells, one of the 8 great spells is indelibly lodged in your mind," said Marchesa, shifting her balance gracefully, as the great lens described a wave arc over the sea. "That's why you were thrown out of Unseen University. We know." But you said just now that he was a magician of great cunning and artifice," protested Twoflower. "Yes, because anyone who survived all that he has survived, most of which was brought on himself by his tendency to think of himself as a wizard, well, he must be some kind of magician, said Marchetas. I warn you, Rincewind, if you give me the merest suspicion that you are intoning the great spell, I really will kill you. She scowled at him nervously. Seems to me your best course would be to just drop us off somewhere, said Rincewind. I mean, thanks for rescuing us and everything. So if you just let us get on with leading our lives, I'm sure we all. I hope you're not proposing to enslave us, said Twoflower. Marchesa looked genuinely shocked. Certainly not. Whatever could have given you that idea? Your lives in Kroll will be rich, full, and comfortable. Oh, good, said Rincewind. Just not very long. Kroll turned out to be a large island, quite mountainous and heavily wooded, with pleasant white buildings visible here and there among the trees. The land sloped gradually up towards the rim, so that the highest point in Kroll, in fact, slightly overhung the edge. Here the Krollians had built their major city, also called Kroll, and since so much of the building material had been salvaged from the circumference, the houses of Kroll had a distinct nautic persuasion. To put it bluntly, entire ships had been mortised artfully together and converted into buildings. Bunch of ship names. Tribenes, Dahals, and Carvers protruded as a strange angle from the generous wooden chaos. Painted figureheads set and hublandish dragon prows reminded the citizens of Kroll that their good fortune stemmed from the sea. Quaint and Carcax lended a distinctive shape to the large buildings, and so the city rose tier on tier between the blue-green ocean of the disk and the soft cloud sky of the edge. The 8 colors of the rainbow reflected in every window and in the many telescope lenses of the city's multitudes of astronomers. I don't know. It's absolutely awful, said Rincewind gloomily. The lens was approaching now along the very lip of the rimfall. The island not only got higher as it neared the edge, it got narrower too, so that the lens was able to remain over water until it was very near the city. The parapets along the edgewise cliff was dotted with gantries projecting into nothingness. Gantries. The lens glided smoothly towards one of them, and docked with it as smoothly as a boat might glide up to a quarry. 4 guards with same moonlight hair and night-black faces as Marches were waiting. They did not appear to be armed, but as Twoflower and Rincewind stumbled onto the parapet, they were each grabbed by the arms and held quite firmly enough for any thought of escape to be instantly dismissed. Then Marches and the watching hydrophobic wizards were quickly left behind, and the guards and their prisoners set off briskly along a lane that wound between the ship houses. Soon it led downward into what turned out to be a place of some sort, half out of the rock of the cliff itself. Rincewind was vaguely aware of brightly lit tunnels and courtyards open to the distant sky. A few elderly men, their robes covered in mysterious occult symbols, stood aside and watched with interest as the sextet passed. Several times Rincewind noticed hydrophobes. Their ingrained expressions of self-revulsion at their own bodily fluids was distinctive. And here and there treaded men who could only be slaves. He didn't have much time to reflect on all this before a door was opened ahead of them, and they were pushed, gently but firmly, into a room. Then the door slammed behind them. Rincewind and Twoflower regained their balance and stared. Hold on. Need another drink. Okay. Rincewind and Twoflower regained their balance and stared around the room in which they now found themselves. Gosh! Said Twoflower ineffectively, after a pause during which he had tried unsuccessfully to find a better word. This is a prison cell? Wondered Rincewind out loud. All that gold and silk and stuff? Twoflower added. I've never seen anything like it. Okay, well, we'll find out what room they're looking in the next part, because I'm dying on words. Ugh, that section with all the boat stuff. Why? This is why I'm doing it, to try and improve my reading abilities. Anyways, so they have been brought finally into Kroll, yeah, to find out why they're here, and so we can find out why they're here next time, hopefully, I think. I think there's a conversation. We're getting so close. So we're on page 239. And this book ends at 277, so we're like 40 pages left, pretty much, which is pretty good. Anyways, I have been Endragh. This has been A Color of Magic. I hope it brought a smile to your face, and I will see you next time. Night, night, guys.